Let's start with a question. Who do you think owns the most gold in the world? Most people would guess the United States government, with its legendary Fort Knox holding over 8,000 tons of the shiny metal. Others might point to China, quietly stacking gold reserves to back its currency. Or maybe India, where families hold centuries worth of gold jewelry. But what if I told you that one man, yes, a single billionaire investor, secretly owns more gold than entire nations? Meet John Paulson, the Wall Street legend who bet against the housing market in 2008, made billions when the world went broke, and then turned his fortune into gold. This is the story of how John Paulson, along with a few other quiet billionaires like Ray Dalio, became the private kings of gold while governments and central banks were busy printing money like there was no tomorrow. The making of a contrarian. John Paulson wasn't born into money. He was the son of immigrants raised in Queens, New York, and worked his way up through Harvard Business School. In 1994, he founded his own hedge fund, Paulson and Company, starting small but thinking big. Then came 2008, the financial apocalypse. While banks, governments, and billionaires were losing everything, Paulson saw what no one else did. He realized the housing market was a bubble about to explode, so he made one of the boldest bets in financial history, shorting the U.S. housing market using credit default swaps. When the crash came, Paulson made over $20 billion in profit. That's right, while the global economy burned, Paulson built an empire. But here's the part that most people don't know. After his legendary trade, Paulson didn't trust the financial system anymore. He'd seen the corruption, the money printing, the bailouts, and he decided the safest place for his fortune wasn't in dollars, stocks, or bonds. It was in gold. The turn toward gold. Around 2009, when central banks began flooding the system with cheap money to save the economy, Paulson saw danger. Inflation, currency debasement, the slow decay of purchasing power. All the classic warning signs of a monetary storm. So he began shifting his massive wealth into gold. Not just gold stocks, but physical bullion and gold-backed investments. By 2011, Paulson's fund had invested over $4.6 billion in gold, making it one of the largest private gold positions on Earth. At one point, it was estimated that John Paulson controlled more gold than entire countries like Portugal, Sweden, or Mexico. That's not hyperbole. Those nations hold roughly 300 to 400 tons of gold each. Paulson's holdings, directly and indirectly through his fund, were valued in the same range. He even called gold the best long-term store of value there is. While mainstream investors mocked him for being old-fashioned, Paulson stayed firm. He believed that every time governments printed new money, they were silently stealing wealth from savers. And gold, the one asset they couldn't create from thin air, was the ultimate defense. Gold as a rebellion. To understand why Paulson and others went all in on gold, you need to understand what gold really represents. It's not just a shiny rock, it's a rebellion against paper money, a vote of no confidence in the financial system. Governments can print dollars, euros, or yen endlessly, but they can't print gold. Every ounce mined has taken millions of years to form underground. That's what makes it scarce, stable, and incorruptible. Ray Dalio, the billionaire founder of Bridgewater Associates, the world's largest hedge fund, famously said, "If you don't own gold, you know neither history nor economics." Dalio's fund, at its peak, held tens of billions in gold-related assets, and he often described gold as a hedge against the stupidity of governments. Like Paulson, Dalio didn't see gold as a speculative bet. He saw it as insurance. Insurance against what he called the changing world order. The quiet gold rush of billionaires. While everyday people were being told to buy tech stocks, a quiet movement was happening among the ultra-wealthy. Billionaires like Stanley Druckenmiller, Ray Dalio, Paul Tudor Jones, and John Paulson were moving serious money into gold and not advertising it. They knew something most didn't. When interest rates are low and debt levels are sky high, gold historically explodes in value. It's like an anti-fiat weapon, the one thing central banks can't inflate away. In interviews, Paulson warned repeatedly about the danger of paper wealth. He said, "As inflation picks up, the real value of financial assets goes down, while the value of real assets like gold goes up." And he wasn't wrong. In the decade that followed the 2008 crisis, gold prices more than doubled, from around $800 per ounce to over $1,800. Even after the dips, it remained one of the strongest performing assets of the century. The man who owns a country's worth of gold. By 2012, the media started calling John Paulson the Gold King. Reports estimated that almost 45% of his total portfolio was tied to gold, either through bullion or mining companies like Anglo Gold Ashanti. To put that into perspective, most central banks keep less than 10% of their reserves in gold. Paulson's exposure was nearly 5 times that. If gold were a nation, Paulson would have been its central banker. When asked why he was so obsessed with gold, Paulson replied simply, "I view gold as a currency, not a commodity. Its value reflects the declining confidence in paper money." And he wasn't alone in that thinking. Around the same time, countries like Russia and China began aggressively increasing their gold reserves. But unlike those governments, Paulson didn't have to answer to politicians or citizens. His empire was private and quiet, the world of private vaults and hidden reserves. Here's where things get truly fascinating and mysterious. Billionaires like Paulson don't just buy gold and stick it in a bank. They store it in private vaults, often outside the jurisdiction of any single government. Switzerland, Singapore, and even underground facilities in London or the Cayman Islands are home to these secret gold bunkers. These vaults are guarded like nuclear facilities. Fingerprint access, no cameras, no digital trace. In other words, the world's richest people are literally building private gold reserves that rival those of nations, completely outside the financial system. Paulson himself is rumored to store a significant portion of his bullion in Switzerland, the same country where the Bank for International Settlements operates. That's right, the hidden bank that controls global money and the man who hoards real money might just be neighbors. Coincidence? Maybe, but it's poetic, isn't it? When the world turns digital. As we move into a new era of central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, and cashless economies, gold suddenly looks even more rebellious. Governments want to track every transaction, automate taxation, and control monetary flow. Gold, on the other hand, exists outside that system, anonymous, physical, and untraceable. That's exactly why investors like John Paulson and Ray Dalio view it as the ultimate counterbalance. While the world goes digital, they're doubling down on the one asset that can't be hacked or deleted. Dalio once compared holding gold to holding a lifeboat while the Titanic sinks. He wasn't being dramatic, he was being realistic. When inflation erodes currency value and trust in the system crumbles, gold historically rises from the ashes, just like it did in the 1970s, the 2008 crisis, and again during global instability in the 2020s. The irony of gold's critics. Of course, mainstream economists love to dismiss gold. They call it barbaric, outdated, and unproductive. But here's the irony. Central banks themselves are buying record amounts of it. In 2023 alone, central banks purchased over 1,100 tons of gold, the highest annual total in modern history. So while the headlines tell you gold is dead, the people who print the headlines and the money are quietly hoarding it. And John Paulson saw that pattern early. He once said, "Every time governments debase currency, gold wins." It's not about getting rich, it's about staying safe when paper wealth burns. The shift to the next financial era. Today, Paulson isn't running a massive hedge fund anymore. He's turned his focus to managing his personal fortune and protecting it. His gold holdings, both private and through funds, are still estimated in the billions. And while markets swing between crypto hype and stock rallies, he remains grounded in something much older. Something that survived every empire, every currency collapse, every war. Because when you zoom out far enough, every currency in history has eventually failed. But gold? Gold has outlived them all. It's almost poetic that in an age of AI trading and digital money, some of the smartest minds in finance are hoarding something dug from the ground thousands of years ago. So the next time you hear about inflation, money printing, or digital currencies of the future, remember, there's a man out there, calm, quiet, and heavily insured by gold, who's already planned for what comes next. John Paulson may not wear a crown, but in the kingdom of real money, he's already royalty. And maybe the biggest secret of all is this. While the world chases paper profits, he's holding on to something timeless. Because when trust dies, gold lives. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into financial power, hit that like button, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories the mainstream never tells.